let's try this, see if that works. I knew that wasn't gonna work. God, why does it keep doing that? So yesterday we said that in the past, we had learned one by past, I mean like way back. Like this is not something you should have just learned in geometry. You should have known the formula for the area of triangles since you were like, I think you learned it in elementary school. So what was the formula for the area of a triangle before we learned the one we learned yesterday? I mean, it still is the formula. It's the only one you do. Well, there's two of them. There's one that should have always known, and then there's one we learned yesterday. So I'm asking you about the one we learned yesterday. I want to know the other.
Wait, the one okay, it's area equals 1.5 times. That's the one that I was talking about before.
Like the old traditional area of a triangle. So yes, so what, and you could use division, it doesn't have to be 1/2, but we said before, area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Now, we could have said base times height divided by 2, so if that's one you memorize on your own, that's fine, same thing. Here's the problem though, we don't always have the height. We don't always have the height. So we learned a new formula for when a triangle doesn't have the height if we have some information about an angle that we can use. That's the one I'm asking for here. So what is that formula? And I think I had changed it by this class. I think I had written the one that I'm going to write here. If not, you can change it. What do we say the new formula is? You should all have it written down. If you don't have it written down.
Side. You answered the first one. Okay, but you should know. Yes, I do have it right here. Yeah, but you didn't. One time. No, girl, that was the one that we just did. This was yesterday. Is that what you said?
Yesterday. Who was on here yesterday? 1, 2, 3. All right. So this is what you need to copy down for sure. This next quiz for you three, since you weren't here, for everybody. Next quiz is like almost completely memorization. It's sort of like the circumcenter, centroid. What else was on that? Circumcenter, centroid. What were the other like center points of circumcenter? I don't remember. Anyway, it's kind of like that one. You just got a lot of stuff you got to memorize and keep straight. So go ahead. Are you guys gonna say it again? Or?
Yeah, 1 times the first side, second side.
All right, so I'm going to change it a little bit. If I didn't change it, maybe I didn't change it for this class. We use the sine of an angle. So that's going to be one of the numbers we use. Then we use the 2 adjacent sides, but I'm going to write it a little differently. I'm just going to write side length, and I'll explain why I'm saying this is different. We need to use the sides that surround the angle. So yesterday, I think I said the adjacent sides. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. The angle needs to be surrounded by the 2 sides you're using. That's why I'm writing it that way in the formula, because the angle is surrounded by the 2 sides you're using. If we don't have the 2 sides surrounding it, then we cannot use that angle. Any questions on that? We're going to actually do a problem with it. So I've already sort of done the whole problem, but let's erase part of it. And I'm going to zoom in. Actually, I can't really zoom in. All right, that's fine. We'll just ignore what's, oh, actually, hold on. Oh. Interesting. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we can solve that. What we did, so if you weren't here yesterday, this is almost the whole lesson. There was something we did before this that it was like the easier type of problem. This is kind of the same, and yes, 58 and 29.
Okay.
You will need calculators. If you don't have one, you can grab one around you. I don't have one up here.
I can still draw that.
Well, you're solving for,
But is
well,
it-
no, you're figuring out the area of that triangle. Oh, I didn't say that. It kind of said area up there, but you're figuring out the area of that triangle. It's using the new formula. So we don't have the height, right? There's no height, so I can't do 1/2 based on height. So use the new formula we learned yesterday. I don't see any calculators lying around, so if there's not one around you, let me know and I can give you one of the white calculators. Anybody not have one? You guys still have one? All of ours on there?
Wait, you would do the sentence or
Well, I want you guys to try to do it.
is it?
I would almost guarantee on this next quiz, there are gonna be a lot of people that lose points just because they don't know how to use the calculator.
The sign we're trying to find or the?
No, we're finding the area of the triangle. Now, it is possible that they could give you the area of the triangle. And you could have to solve for one of the parts, like, they might give you the area and you have to solve for the angle or for one of the sides or something like that. I'm not going over any of that. There's all kind of ways you could solve. The key is you need to know the formula. You plug in whatever they give you and then you solve for what you don't have. That's just doing the algebra. I'm not gonna do every possible type of algebra.
Those were. No, you're not doing it. Actually, it's not by the yes.
If not,
So I'll give you another minute. You know what you're doing.
It's not.
You should be about done.
It's signed or just something. Girl.
oh, you do it without the like thinking of the song.
I think I have it.
Okay,
I'm gonna start at 30 seconds. So when the red hand gets to the 3.
What do you mean? Have them face inside the box.
yeah, I don't know.
Face.
Did you just ask me?
No.
Oh, you threw it. So what's the issue with this problem the way it is? Yeah, the angles we have aren't surrounded by sides, right? Yeah, so the angles we have, we said have to be surrounded by sides. Well, those are not. We need to solve, well, the third angle. We need to solve for the third angle because that angle is surrounded by sides. That angle we can use. And if we know 2 of the 3, we can solve for it. Now, I would be super impressed, and I'm not asking any of you right now, but if you guys can do this and you want to show it to me later, I might use that as credit on toward a quiz because that's really showing me you understand what we're doing. There is actually a way to solve for this side down here. Not anything we've done. I mean, we've done enough to where if you really, really were getting all this stuff, you could do it. I had one student that was close, but nobody's gotten it correct yet. But there is a way to solve for that side using trigonometry that we've learned. So if you want to try to do that and you want to explain how you would do it, that would tell me that you're certainly understanding this. And if you made a little mistake on a quiz or something, like you punched something wrong in a calculator or you made a little mistake, I could kind of forgive it and still give you credit. I don't know about that. Oh yeah, I got 2 of them. Didn't have any earlier. All right, so now we'll just go ahead and solve it though. Here's the formula. So again, you could have made it divided by 2 instead of times 1/2. I need to solve for that. So if you solve for that, what did you get? What'd you get for the third angle? All right, did you get 93? Yeah, so if you're not sure how we got that, The 58 plus 29 plus, I don't have a letter there, but we'll just call it angle A maybe, equals 180. So all three angles have to add up to 180. That if we have one variable, one equation, we can solve for the variable. So if you do all the math on that, angle A is 93 degrees. And that's the angle we're going to use because it is surrounded by sides, the side to the left, side to the right. Now we just plug in the values. So that's the next step. Sine of 93 times the two sides surrounding it, and then times 1/2. If you didn't get that far, I'll give you a second, because again, I've had mistakes on calculators all day yesterday and all day today. So make sure you are practicing with your calculator.
It doesn't matter if it's mixed.
Doesn't matter, but I just want to make sure. This one isn't one of the tough ones. The toughest one is at the end of the lesson.
Then I know.
Not just yet. You have to wait until the first 10 minutes are done. I don't believe we're out. So 6th period started at 12:18. Oh, actually, we are past it. Do you have the answer to this? Yeah, I was gonna say that.
What did you do?
So I want you to stay in, and so you can. What do you have?
Help.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at least stay in. So you can. Did you copy it down so you can go back and?
I might have typed in.
No.
No, can't be. Yeah, somebody else got a negative. You will never get a negative if you're solving for an angle or a side or an area. No, none of that can be negative. Side length can't be negative. Angles can't be negative. Area can't be negative. Like there's never a negative if you're final answer. Well, you multiply by 1/2 or divide by 2. That's the same operation. No. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. So go ahead. Yeah, it's just below 14. So next step is when we it's underneath that. All right.
Yes, you did. You said this is without sign.
No, oh my gosh, I was talking about the beginning.
All right, so last step then, or pretty much last step, is multiply all that together. Oh yeah, that is last step. And then, like we just said, you should get 13.9. So this is going to be one of the sections, just figuring out area of a triangle. You have a section from what we did last week that was either solving for the missing angle of a right triangle or solving for one of the sides of the right triangle, but using cosine, sine, and tangent, not using a squared, b squared, c squared. So that's what we did last week. It was probably pages. Probably pages 149. Well, the problems were on page 149, 1 through 15. So that's also on this next quiz, is being able to do that. Don't forget about that. That was a long time ago, but we haven't been quizzed on it yet. All right, so now go to your book pages. Hold that thought. Shoot, how am I going to do this? Damn it. Oh, here. I did this one. Not the way I wanted to do it, but that's fine. If it works. Oh, did not. Maybe it did work. Hold on. See if it comes up to the right spot. Yeah. All right. So that's what we learned last class. For those of you that were not here, it was not there. Not there. Oh, wait, actually, I'm sorry. We're way back. Yeah, so it was page 163 is where that lesson was, what we just did for bell work. It was really just like a 2-page lesson. And we pretty much just covered it, so. Then you had practice problems assigned, page 164, 1 through 11, were from that lesson. Now this is the new stuff. So now this is brand new to everybody. So this is totally memorization. No. All right, so this is what you got to know. There is no other way to like figure this out other than to memorize. You can't be given that information, well, not in a timely manner at least, and then be able to do it some other way that we've learned. You're going to have to just memorize the relationship. Well, it's called the law of sines, but it's the relationship between the sine of an angle and its opposite side. That's what all this means. So first thing I'll show you on top is about angles. The bottom is about sides. So when you see these A's and B's and the same letter, but one's capital, we're taking the sign of something, but not of something else. That's what you got to get straight. Lowercase letter is about the length of a side. Capital letter is referring to the angle. And in the formula, the angles are on top, capital letters, angles, and the sides are on the bottom. And when we take the sine of something, we never take the sine of a side, we take the sine of an angle. And then that leads us to those formulas. One formula. Problem. Depends on where I'm at. So let's just go ahead and talk about. So, oh, another quick thing. Don't memorize it just with letters. Because just like the last theorem we learned, you're not always going to have a triangle that's triangle ABC. So if you have a triangle that's not ABC and all you know how to do is plug in letters, you're going to be in trouble when it's not ABC. So it is the angle on top, the sine of an angle, and then the side that is the opposite side, the corresponding side to that angle. So for example, if I'm going to create a proportion to solve this, oh, and you do have to choose the correct like angle and side. Like I wouldn't want to choose B in this. Like if I chose B, first of all, I don't have an angle there, although I can solve for it, so I can fix that. But then I don't have anything on this side, and I'm not trying to solve for that. They didn't ask me to solve for B. So there's no reason for me to choose that angle and that side as my proportion. There's not data in both of those places, and I'm not trying to solve for the missing section, the missing side, B. I'm trying to solve for X, and I know 35, so I'll use that. And then I know both of these, so anytime you know both the angle and the side, you're definitely going to use that. That's where your proportion really comes from to be able to solve. So with that in mind, using this concept up here, I take one of the angles where I have a measure, and then the opposite side where again I have a measure. I have a 9, I have a length. By measure, I mean like either the measure of the angle or the length of the side. You have to have that to be able to solve. One of your proportions has to have just 2 numbers in. Now we just use whatever it is we're solving for. So if I want to solve for X, then I need to use that opposite angle, C. That's my proportion. Now I would solve it out differently than they do. Like they keep that sign of whatever, they keep that all the way in to like the end of it. I don't like doing it that way personally. I would right now, I'd take the sign of that number. I would take the sine of that number, create my new proportion, and then I would solve out using that. So if somebody will take, what's the sine of 58? And give me like 4 numbers after the decimal.
0.848.
0.8480 over 9. And what's the sine of 35? I don't love where I wrote that.
0.57.
0.57. So that's what I would use. Like they leave this in there all the way till the end. They're doing the same exact thing. I just prefer to convert it to a decimal immediately. Now we solve using the whole cross multiplication. The butterfly. I mean, when the X is on the bottom, I feel like it's a little bit easier, or certainly if X is on the bottom.
And it gives me the same.
Where'd you get 1.5?
1.5? No, not 1.5.
If there's no half in this, we're not doing the area of a triangle. We've moved on to a totally new thing. So if you're still using a half, then you're probably getting the wrong answer.
Wait,
We left the area of a triangle when we started this law of sines thing. There's no half in these proportions. I don't know.
160.
Is that what it is?
Oh.
No, it'd be farther than that, right? 165 was the, is it? There were only 11 problems on the last.
I thought it was 1.5.
It is. So hold on just a second. All right, so what do we get? What was the answer? Come on. Well, I want to know just what was the final answer. X is what? Should be around 6, I'm guessing. I don't remember from the last class. Yeah, they don't give you the final answer. What's the final answer?
So you put sine 8 degrees over 9 because the problem.
Fine.
Because it says it even in the orange.
Well, because that's the formula. The sine of the angle is on top, and then the side across from it is on the bottom, right? That's what that sine of A over A means. Sine of the angle goes on top, and then the side that is across, the length of the side that's across from that angle goes on the bottom. Somebody do the final answer. So everybody can check their answer. 6.1 sounds right, I believe. I said somewhere around 6, so that would make sense. And I do believe I remember that. So that's what you should get when you do all the math out. I'm not giving you a bunch of time to do a bunch of math today so that we can just get through all the lesson, get it all recorded. And then Thursday will be pretty much a full day of practice. Like there's no new lesson at all on Thursday. Well, just try to do the next one and we're going to do the whole thing together. So you've already got example 1 pretty much worked out, but try to do the setup and everything on the check problem. And then we'll see how you're doing on it. And I do not remember the answer to the check problem, so please do that so we can compare answers. There's no A, B, C though, there's a C, but so you got to make sure you understand how to use the
Wait,
formula.
what answer?
6.1 was the example 1, but we're trying to come up with the answer for here so we can all have that answer. Solving for D. know when I create this problem, I'm probably gonna give you information in the other areas so that you have to know which ones to use. You don't really have an option here. There's only 4 numbers. It's a little easier, but I'll probably give you more than 4 numbers and you gotta know what to use. Another minute. All right, so again, we are taking the sine of an angle divided by its opposite side. Setting that equal to the sine of a different angle divided by its opposite side. So the angles are always on top. Here, I'm gonna, that's fine. So I'm gonna take the sine of the angle where I have a number for the opposite side. Doesn't matter which one you do first. Sine of 37 over 98.4. 98.4 is the length of the opposite side. And then I just set that equal to sine of 59 over the length of the opposite side, which is what I'm trying to solve for. And then now you solve that out. So take the sine of 37, replace that with a number, take the sine of 59, replace that with a number, and then cross multiply to solve for D. What did somebody guess?
I got
83.7 would make, what is it? That might not be drawn this. Yeah, 83.7 shouldn't work. Is that what you got? Anybody else get that? Because
or you could-
this side should be bigger than this side. If this angle is bigger, this side should be bigger. They might get a number bigger than 98.4. What'd you get? 140.2. All right, so I think 140.2 is the answer.
I did, wait.
I didn't got cross multiplied. So I did this time.
Today's not the solving day. I mean, if you have it set up right, that's all I'm concerned about for today. Sine of 59. I'm not sure. I mean, you definitely did something wrong on the solving day. Oh, did you take? Where'd you get this from? This is the sine of that times that.
Wait,
Yeah, you gotta take that first bit and you multiply.
Yeah.
Oh, you're adding, so it's times,
oh.
x times that, okay, so I think we solved that.
Oh, I think it's wrong.
Yeah, so that's right, and then that times that, so it's just like 2x. It'd be that number with the d.
That's
So
really
did you-
how you got it.
So divide 84 point whatever. You'd say 84 point whatever divided by whatever your sine of 37 was. So what here? What's the sine of 37?
Oh, yeah, there.
That. What's the sine of 59? 0.843, right? Should be 80.
84.34.
No, I just want just the sine of 59. Not multiplied times 9.
8.857.
That's what I'm. So 0.857. So that you can put dx, whatever you want, whatever the variable is. So now when we multiply, you get the 84 point what?
0.34.
And then you have to divide by that on both sides. Yeah, this one was waiting, so let me let her go now that they got that straightened out. I don't think with anybody waiting after that. So let her go real quick since I was keeping her. So Hannah, you can go to the restroom or hurry back because you're gonna miss some more stuff because we're doing the next topic is new also. All right, so that's really everything. Like there are different versions of that a little bit, but not a lot. Like you might get a problem where they make you solve for the missing angle first. I think that's what the next problem is actually. Yeah, so all they do here is they make you solve for the missing angle first before you can set up the proportions. But once you do that, it's the same exact thing. This is just a word problem showing you how this stuff is used. If you've ever seen the guys either in the road or on the side of the road, a lot of times around construction going on with the roads, they have that little tripod thing set up and they're like looking through a little thing that has to do with this stuff. Like it's figuring out angles and distances and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how much of it they have to do. My guess is they just are plugging stuff into a computer and solving it for them, but it's based on a lot of this same stuff. Land surveyors is one of the jobs that I think does that when you're trying to figure out like a distance without having to map a whole area out. You can have that little scope thing. I'm pretty sure this is the way it works. It shows them the angle if they look at the 2 points. They know the 2 angles and they can, and it'll show them the distance from one point to another. So they have the 2 distances. Now they can figure out that distance between the 2. And we're not doing anything with this lesson here. That's one that either you would just get it or you don't when they are asking you questions about it to try to explain it. I'm not even going to spend any time on it. We have got to get to circles. We are way behind some of the teachers. Not behind everybody, but way behind some of them. So we've got to get through all this. And there was more triangle stuff. I'm sorry, trig stuff than I thought. All right, so your assignment then from that lesson was that one? Yeah. It's page 169, 1 through 14. Again, that's what will be what I expect you to know for the next quiz from that lesson. And here's the new lesson. This is definitely a little more complex. Still memorization, but tougher to memorize. So now we're learning a way to solve for missing information using cosines instead of sines. We would be solving typically for the like a missing side, but it's possible that we would maybe they could reverse it on us and make us go backwards and solve for a missing angle, or we could solve for, well, no, it'd still be a side. So it's possible they could make you solve for a side instead. I'm sorry, an angle instead. You have to know when you can use the law of sines, when you can use the law of cosines. It tells you below the theorems, like when you know that, you can use the law of cosines. So if you know side angle side, that's when you use the law of cosines. I didn't really point it out, but I will now, I guess. If you go back to the law of sines, there, not there. Yeah, so on the very first page, it tells you when you know this. So if you just want to memorize that and say, okay, when I know this, I can do the law of sines. If I know this other thing, I can do the law of cosines. You want to just memorize it, that's fine. Ultimately, you just know how to use them, then you'll know whether or not you have enough information to use.
So it's the same thing.
No, it's not even close to the same thing. It is way more complex. Way more complex. So we're going to go over that now. Yeah, law of sines is much easier. So if you have enough information to do a law of sines, always use the law of sines. There we go. All right. So now back to this. Oh, let me signal all the way in. All right. So again, do not focus on the letters because triangle doesn't have ABC in it. You're not going to know how to set it up. So I'm going to give you a somewhat complex version of this. It's just something you'll have to practice to understand what each piece means. A is a side you're solving for. Now, ultimately, if you have the square there, you're going to have to take the square root. Remember that. Anytime you have squares involved in a formula, you're going to have to get rid of that at some point. So just remember, at the end, we're going to have to take the square root. I'm not going to take that into account when I create this formula. I started to in the other class, but I'm not going to. So there's going to be a lot of writing in this. So the side you are solving for, I'm going to write the side you want to find, I guess, is what these are. So again, I'm taking all three of these and just making one formula. It will work no matter what the letters are in the triangle. If you just want to learn these and you can adjust them, then you can just do that. You don't have to write what I'm doing. I'm trying to help you out if you're confused by the fact that there's three different things with A's and B's and C's everywhere. So the side you want to find is always what goes on the far left. And that's going to be, and then this is a squared sign. So don't forget that. That's going to equal 173. I'm going to just call, so these are the other two sides of the triangle. Like remember the lowercase letters are the sides of the triangle. I'm just going to say other side 1 and other side 2 is all I'm going to call them. So in parentheses, other side 1. So that's one of the other sides. So basically not the side I'm solving for. I just one of the other sides. And then I add that to, I'm going to just call this other side 2. I guess I'll spell that. Here's the key. You just take the other two sides, you square them, and then you add them together. That's another way you could just write it. You could say the sum of the other two sides squared. Like there's a bunch of different ways you could write this to make sense. So when you practice, if you want to create your own formula, that's probably a good idea. Now we're going to subtract from that. We do just need the number 2 in there. Actually, we can put that in parentheses too. Also. So that, and we're multiplying times other side 1. And then that times Other side 2. And then this is really tricky to write. We're going to take the cosine of the angle that is the corresponding angle to the side we're trying to solve for. I don't really even know how to write that in a short version. But it's the cosine of the angle. So cosine of the angle, you're going to have to come up with your own wording for that. Cosine of the angle. Hey, what? Here's how I'm going to do it. Again, you create your own version. I'm going to use this one when we solve out. And I'm going to just do this. The angle that matches. So again, just understand the two outside things. So the far left thing that's by itself, the far right thing at the end. They need to match up. Make sure they're the opposite angles and opposite sides from each other. And then the stuff in the middle is just using the other two sides. Here we're squaring those two sides and adding them together. Here we're multiplying, but we also have to multiply them by the number 2. You got to remember that. That's the issue with this next quiz. And not only do you have to remember that, but you got to keep it straight from all the other things you got to memorize that are also about cosine and sine and tangent and all that. So there's going to be a lot of memorization on this next quiz. So don't think you're going to walk in here without studying the night before and do okay. Don't see, and frankly, even once you plug everything in, we were getting a lot of calculator areas or errors, like just not being able to plug it in correctly and get the right answer. Ask Plato. Whoever came up, I don't know. Somebody a long time ago, though. Oh, that's not going to scroll when I scroll the whole screen, but that's fine. Is anybody still writing that? Somebody say yes. All right. Yes. All right. Actually, I'm sorry. I can still, that doesn't move. So here's your problem. Tell you what, try to do it without what they did first. Again, if you want to use the formulas up above, use them. Whatever you, oh, I went too far. So again, so there's your problem. Just try to do the example. But right now, you're just using your notes and plugging it in. Keep in mind, though, you've got to memorize that formula and be able to do it. In addition to still being able to do all the other things that we just learned all on one quiz. So that's going to probably take a minute. Oh, actually, I'll do attendance. Oh, you already went, right? Yep. So if you want to go ahead and go. And I will do attendance, which will give you some time to complete that. Let's see, I'll freeze it for you, just in case you need that. Oh, shoot. Never mind, I'm not going to do attendance. Because then I'm going to try to avoid putting you on the recording. But we'll just start this in a minute. I'll do attendance when you start practicing. Remember how much time I had to practice. You're going to have more than they have, that's for sure. And don't forget the square root at the end. You should know if you come up with a number that's like way too big. If the sides here are 2.9 and 0.9, x can't be bigger than 2.9 actually, because 2.9 is the longest side. So x should be somewhere in the 2.3 3 range, maybe. Yeah, then that sounds like it's probably right. I mean, they did it for you down here. You're just multiplying out numbers. Try to do is there a check after it or not? Is there a check after this one or not a check?
There is.
Oh, all right. So,
Actually, there is, after example 2, there's a check.
but not after example 1, there's not a check. I don't remember if we did example 2 in the other class or not. Probably. So we'll do that one real quick and then you can do the check and then I'll tell you which problems you're responsible for. I think this is the last, yeah, page 177 is the last thing. All right, so let's start plugging stuff in. I am solving for what side? If you want to use letter, that's fine, or you can tell me solving for x, really, right? That's what I really want. So we can write x squared, that's fine. Just remember at the end, you're going to come back and you're going to have to take the square root. So x squared is this. So that equals the other two sides, basically. So not the side that's x. And we need to do what with them? Where they already did it for you. So what do we do with the other two sides? We're going to square both of them individually. Don't add them together and then square them. Some people are adding them together first, then squaring them. You have to take each of them individually and square them. So that. Opposite way. Oh, that. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, order doesn't matter. Because ultimately you're just adding these two together. It doesn't matter which one's first if they just get added together. Now we do the subtraction part. Oh, wrong part of the pin. Somebody asked me, is that a -2 or how do I treat that? If you just, in this case, since everything after that's multiplication, you can just leave it as subtraction and then just multiply everything after that. So 2 is always part of the formula. Now we just use the same two numbers we used before that we squared, because those are the other two sides, which we're going to use both of those. And then that is times what? What do we have to do for the last piece? Cosine of whatever angle matches up with the side we want. So if we want x, we need the cosine of the angle that's across from it that corresponds. So cosine of 44. Again, they did most of that problem for you. So make sure you practice the setup part. And then now you put all that into the calculator. I would convert this separately. I would convert these separately. Then do the math. Make sure you do all of this together because that's all multiplication, which comes before addition and subtraction. So all of this has to be done first. If you're trying to just plug it all into the calculator at once, you got to be a little careful on how you do that, especially with the blue calculators. And then when you get an answer, let me know so everybody can check here. Or I heard 2.3 so far. So. Was that rounded or?
It's 2.337.
So yeah, so it would round to 2.3. So 2.3 would be your final answer. If you're not getting that, I'm not going to worry about it right now. After I get through the lesson, I'll walk around. You'll actually have quite a bit of practice time. The other class only had 10 minutes. Hopefully I didn't skip anything. We're not quite done. I'm going to get rid of all of that. And what in the world? There. So final, oh, and then remember, square root of it is what got you down to the 2.3. So that would have been the final answer. Don't forget the square root part. So this particular problem, not really any different. Same exact concept. You just start with a little bit different information, but ultimately you have to write that formula out, plug in whatever you know, and then solve. In this case, we're solving for the angle. So at that end, when we took cosine of 44, we're not going to have a number. We're going to have the cosine of x. How do we solve for a missing angle? What do we have to do? Like, what's that? We did that for bell work the other day. When the angle's missing, I think you're doing the right thing.
One angle.
Well, when it's the angle we're solving for, what do we have to do in the using the calculator? Or something we said, we're missing the angle, we have to do this. When we know the angle, we do this. Say it again. Can't hear you. Not times two. The number two is involved, sort of. Not, you don't do any math with the number two, but there was something that we had to do on the calculator. Second function. Remember, if the angle is missing, if we don't know the angle, we're going to wind up using the second function. That's what this is. Inverse cosine. So we'll get down to where we have to do the inverse cosine of some decimal number, and that will give us the measure of the angle. So they've already solved this one all out for you, but let's go ahead and get a final answer so you can check your answer. So you guys try to solve it out. Actually, I'll solve it out and just give you the answer. Yes. You should never get negatives, remember. So if you get a negative, check your math. So we get that, and then we do the inverse cosine. So it looks like 53.8 for this problem is your answer. So write these down so that you can go through and make sure you're getting the right math. So for the example 2, 53.8. And I don't know what the answer is for this. So we'll have to set that up in a second, and then we can solve it out. Whoops. So 53.8 was that one there. I have to scroll, so make sure you write that down. Example 2, the answer was 53.8. Now you have all this in your book, so I'm just kind of doing it so you have the answers to check. Thursday will be the big day where I walk around and help more, and you have a whole bunch of practice time.
Wait.
53.8 was example 2. 53.8 was there. I'm about to do this one on my own just to give you the answers. I'll come back to that later. Just for now, just write 53.8. And I'm gonna, once I get through all this and get it recorded and stop the recording, then I'll start walking around. Somebody's Elijah's waiting. Somebody's out. Oh. Been out for a little while, so if she's not back in a minute, I'll let Elijah go. Let's see. You're not even laughing. Wait, there's one of my students, just not my students. All right, so here I'm going to solve this out. I really want you to see it. All right, I know what I'm doing. All right, so let's see. So we want to solve, well, not really solve, but I know that's because you're not supposed to see it. I don't want you to see it. I want you to have to do it on your own. Well, I want you to have the final answer just to check your work, but I want you to have to set it all up yourself. Ah. All right, so now I gotta multiply all that. Kind of cool writing really small. Then we would say that times that times that equals that. There she is. I just do it. So now I got to do a whole bunch of math for math. Oh, there we go. There is your answer. So you can write that down for the check and see if you can come up with that. All right, so you have, I know everybody's very excited about doing the golf example, but I think we can say that tomorrow. Although we should have done that one.
Tomorrow?
We should have done, I'm sorry, Thursday. We should have done that one before the Masters. I watched the Masters. I hope that. Only like the best golf tournament ever. Whatever. Whatever.
Next year.
Fine.
Let's just not him a whole thing.
Hmm.
Mr. Gill takes the grade out of high, you go to a no.
Wait, so it doesn't matter which two sides you,
I am a little old. I've loved
Yeah.
golf since I was young.
because it's the adjacent. and-
That has nothing to do with being old.
But next to the one, yeah.
What do they ask you? Huh. So yeah, so I will probably go over one or two of the word problems on Thursday, but mostly it'll be a practice day. So that's it for the new lesson. Let me just really quickly see what. Yeah, so here's your assignment from this lesson, page 177. Write this down, page 177, 1 through 14. Stop the recording now and then do attendance. Oh no.